want you to pay attention to, go back to the links panel again. When you click on the image, that file information will appear. And one of the things that we need to be very aware of is the path. So if I just expand this panel out a little bit, hopefully we can kind of see more of the path. And the path is basically where that file is linked to. So I just got this from the desktop. You'll see if I now go File, Place, and add a different image, you'll see the path will change because it's a different image and it comes from a different place. If I go back to these images here, so I grab that one. When I click on that, now the file path is within that folder. Now, say for instance, I accidentally, or which one is that again? The basketball one. I accidentally delete that file. Now, when I go back to InDesign, you'll see that a warning appears. Now, you can see the warning in 3 different places. You'll see it on the actual image. You will see it here in your pre-flight panel. So if I click on the bottom of my window here, this little drop-down arrow will appear, and I can access my pre-flight panel. You also have the ability to access your pre-flight panel here in Utilities. No, where is it? Output, is it here? Pre-flight. It's also just a panel that appears. So I can see the missing link, and if I have, say I have a massive document, in my pages, so I have many files, and say I'm just down here on page 11 looking at something else. If I go into my pages panel and I double click on it, it will automatically take me to where that image is located. So that's there's going to be 3 different ways that InDesign is going to say, hey, something is wrong. It's going to be in this links panel. It's that little red error stop, it's saying basically, and it's basically, see, when we see status here, we see it's missing. Now, this is the worst thing you could possibly have. I know it's just in my trash, so I can, if I locate it back in my trash, and put it back into the appropriate folder, and I go back to InDesign, voila, it's not missing anymore. But say I do something like you're working with photographers, you're working with a whole bunch of different suppliers of images, and say they are, you are getting images from a photographer, and this image is given to you, and they're working with it, and then say the photographer says, I just want to update it, I want to change the color, I want to do something else. Now, what's really, really beneficial to InDesign is that we don't have to relink it. So say the photographer sends you this file and then updates it later, as long as you maintain the path or the linking, excuse me, what's it called here? The path, as long as that file doesn't move to a different folder, and say the photographer updates this or changes this in some way, as long as that path is maintained, InDesign will automatically update the file. So for instance, I'll just demonstrate what that might look like. So if I open up this file in Photoshop and I change it slightly, and I go back to InDesign, and you'll see what happens. So, oops, why is this doing this? I haven't opened up Photoshop, obviously, in a couple weeks, and there's something new and updated. Okay, here we go, good. Hopefully it will work. It's not actually going to open up that file, so I'm just going to make sure it's opening up here. Okay, so say for instance I go into the image and the adjustments, and I just change it to whatever. I take away some of the saturation, and I make it super light. Okay, I could actually make it kind of cool like that. Okay, so I press OK, and I save it. I don't actually change the file name. I just go on and save it. So now when I go back to InDesign, this little less severe warning comes up saying I've modified it. So I've modified it outside of InDesign. So the easiest thing to do is just double click on that. And now voila, the image is modified to what you had before, or what is updated. If I go back and I just undo all of that, I save it, I go back to InDesign, I go back to my links panel, Again, I've modified it, so you can do it different ways here. I can go update link here, or I can just double click on this little warning and it updates. So that's a really, really handy tool if you're working with suppliers or different people that are supplying you with images or text even. If you're placing image or text, you can make sure that anything that's been updated externally is going to be updated in InDesign. And this is obviously is really, really important when you're working on deadlines and last minute changes are made and you don't have to replace that image, or you can maintain the design that you've already started, and you can be working with suppliers. It's really, really beneficial. So just make sure that you always maintain that kind of file path. If a file is renamed, obviously you're going to have to relink it, because it's basically a different file if it's renamed. But if we maintain the file path, and even if a different person or yourself updates that or changes that image, when we go back to InDesign, it's going to be automatically updated for us.